I never imagined that the man I hated most would one day become the reason I believed in love, forgiveness, and second chances. It all started with a snowstorm that no weather forecast had truly prepared us for. One moment, I was counting the hours until I could escape another miserable business trip with my cold, emotionless boss, and the next, we were stranded together in an isolated cabin deep in the mountains of Colorado. I thought the storm outside was dangerous, but I had no idea the bigger storm was the one hidden inside both of our hearts. Before we begin, if you believe kindness can change lives and everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that stay with you long after they end. My name is Rachel, and for 3 years I worked at one of the largest architecture firms in Seattle, Washington. Every employee respected our executive director, Michael Carter, but almost nobody liked him. He was known for impossible deadlines, cold expressions, and conversations that rarely lasted longer than necessary. He never smiled at office celebrations, never joined lunch breaks, and never seemed interested in anyone's personal life. To me, he wasn't just a difficult boss. He represented everything I disliked about corporate life. Every late night at work, every missed family dinner, every forgotten birthday somehow felt connected to his endless expectations. When I was assigned to accompany him on an important client presentation in Aspen, I considered it another punishment. The meetings went exactly as expected. Michael remained professional, precise, and emotionally distant while I handled most of the client interactions. The presentation was successful, but instead of celebrating, he immediately insisted we leave before the weather worsened. Halfway down the mountain highway, heavy snow swallowed the road faster than anyone anticipated. Visibility disappeared within minutes. Fallen trees blocked our route, and emergency alerts warned everyone to seek immediate shelter. The nearest place was an old rental cabin maintained for hikers during winter emergencies. We had no choice. The cabin was simple but warm enough to survive the freezing night. The electricity flickered, the fireplace struggled against the wind, and our phones quickly lost signal. For the first time since I had known Michael, there were no meetings, no emails, and no office walls separating us from ordinary life. At first, silence filled every corner of the room. I buried myself in a blanket while he quietly repaired a broken window latch to stop the icy wind from entering. Without his expensive suit jacket and polished office appearance, he looked surprisingly ordinary, tired even. As the hours passed, supplies became limited. We found canned soup, bottled water, and enough firewood for only a couple of days. Survival forced us into teamwork. I prepared food while Michael chopped wood outside despite the bitter cold. Every time he returned, snow covered his shoulders, but he never complained. That night, something unexpected happened. The temperature inside dropped sharply after the fireplace nearly went out. While searching for extra blankets, I slipped on the wooden stairs and twisted my ankle badly. The pain was immediate. Before I could insist I was fine, Michael carefully helped me onto the couch and found an old first aid kit. His movements were calm, gentle, and surprisingly experienced. Watching him wrap my ankle, I realized this was the first time I had ever seen genuine concern in his eyes. The following morning, the storm showed no signs of ending. We remained trapped, with nowhere to escape. Conversation slowly replaced uncomfortable silence. We spoke about childhood memories, favorite books, forgotten dreams, and places we always wanted to visit. I discovered that Michael hadn't always been the emotionally distant executive everyone feared. Years earlier, his wife Sarah had died unexpectedly after a brief illness. Only months later, he lost his father as well. Instead of dealing with grief, he buried himself in work until business success became the only thing keeping him moving. The office wasn't where he escaped responsibility, it was where he escaped loneliness. Listening to his story shattered every assumption I had made. The man I believed had no heart had simply built walls so high that nobody could see the pain hiding behind them. For the first time in years, Michael admitted he couldn't even remember the last genuine conversation he'd had outside business meetings. Success had earned him promotions, respect, and financial security, but it had quietly stolen every meaningful relationship from his life. That confession stayed with me long after the words ended. Over the next 2 days, the storm slowly weakened. But something inside both of us had already changed. We laughed over burned pancakes cooked on an old iron stove. We shared stories by the fireplace late into the night. We even played forgotten card games we discovered inside an old cabinet. Somewhere between survival and simple companionship, the resentment I had carried for years disappeared. When rescue crews finally cleared the roads, I almost couldn't believe how different everything felt. Back in Seattle, life resumed its familiar rhythm, but Michael wasn't the same man who had left for Aspen. The office noticed it before anyone mentioned it. He greeted employees every morning. He thanked people after meetings. He encouraged junior staff instead of criticizing every mistake. Small acts of kindness slowly transformed the entire workplace. Months later, he introduced flexible schedules for employees with families and expanded the company's mental health support program. Nobody understood what had inspired such dramatic changes. I did. One rainy evening after work, Michael invited me to walk through a quiet park overlooking Puget Sound. There were no dramatic speeches or perfect movie moments. Just honesty. He admitted that being trapped in the cabin forced him to confront the person he had become. Watching someone he barely knew show compassion despite believing the worst about him reminded him that life still offered another chance. Our friendship gradually became something deeper. Neither of us rushed it. Healing takes time, and trust grows slowly, but every shared coffee, every weekend hike, and every ordinary conversation built something stronger than either of us expected. A year later, we returned to that same mountain cabin together. This time there was no storm, only clear skies, quiet snowfall, and memories that had transformed pain into hope. Standing outside as fresh snow covered the trees, Michael slipped a small ring into my hand. Tears filled my eyes before he even finished asking the question that changed both of our lives forever. The place where I believed my worst nightmare had begun became the place where my greatest blessings started. Sometimes life doesn't change because circumstances become easier. Sometimes life changes because people finally allow themselves to be seen beyond their scars. I spent years believing my boss was cold because he didn't care. The truth was far more heartbreaking. He cared so deeply once that losing the people he loved convinced him never to open his heart again. But kindness has a remarkable way of reaching places that bitterness never can. And sometimes the strongest walls are broken not by force but by compassion. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to write the words "second chances still exist" in the comments below. Your message may inspire someone who desperately needs hope today. As we drove away from the cabin for the final time, I looked back at the small wooden house that had sheltered two strangers during a storm. It had given us warmth when we were freezing, safety when we were afraid, and most importantly, the courage to discover that healing often begins where we least expect it. The greatest storms are not always the ones that rage outside our windows. Sometimes they live quietly inside our hearts, waiting for one unexpected moment of kindness to finally bring the sunshine back. If this story moved you, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who believes in love and forgiveness, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us all that hope, healing, and second chances are always worth believing in.